My daughter-in-law filed for a restraining order, saying I was an abusive and violent mother-in-law. There I was, Evelyn, 70 years old, sitting in that cold courtroom, listening as Claire spun stories about me in front of the judge. She claimed I hit her, that I screamed, that I terrified my own granddaughter. Lies. All of it lies. But what she didn't know, what no one in that room could imagine, was that my granddaughter Lily, just 6 years old, had something saved on her pink tablet, something Claire had hidden so carefully. And when the judge asked her if she wanted to say anything, my little one raised her hand and said in a trembling voice, "I can show you something Mommy hid." The judge nodded. Lily held up the tablet, her little fingers pressed play, and as the first images began to appear on the large courtroom screen, I watched Claire's face transform. From perfect tears to absolute, pale shock. She tried to stand up. She tried to run, but it was already too late. How did I get here? How did I go from being a happy grandmother to sitting in a courtroom defending my name? Let me take you back 1 year, when everything seemed perfect, when I still trusted her. I lived in the house I built with my husband Richard 45 years ago. A beautiful home with a large backyard where I grew roses and jasmine. After Richard died 5 years ago, the house felt enormous and empty. The first few months were terrible. I'd wake up expecting to hear his voice. I'd make coffee for 2 out of habit. But slowly, I built a routine. My friends from the book club came over on Tuesdays. On Thursdays, I went to the farmer's market. On Sundays, Michael, my only son, came over for lunch. Those Sunday lunches were my joy. Michael worked as an engineer for a construction firm. He was 38 years old and had never really found someone special until he met Claire. I remember the day he introduced her perfectly. It was a spring Sunday 3 years ago. He arrived holding her hand, smiling in a way I hadn't seen since he was a teenager. Claire was beautiful, I can't deny it. Long, dark hair, a bright smile, a lavender dress that highlighted her figure. She was 32 and worked as a manager at a boutique downtown. "Mom, this is Claire," Michael said, his eyes shining. "She's the one. I wanted my son to be happy. He had been alone for so long." So I welcomed her with open arms. I made my best meal that day, roast chicken with potatoes and a fresh salad from my garden. Claire ate very little, said she was watching her figure, but she praised everything. She asked me about the house, about the neighborhood, about how long I'd lived there. Normal questions, I thought. Questions from someone interested in getting to know her boyfriend's family. They got married 6 months later. It was a small but elegant wedding at a garden venue near the river. Claire looked radiant in her ivory dress. I cried tears of happiness, seeing my son so in love. During the first year of marriage, everything seemed wonderful. They lived in an apartment about 20 minutes from my house. They came to visit me every couple of weeks. Claire always brought flowers or some store-bought dessert. She smiled, hugged me, and sweetly called me Mom Evelyn. When she got pregnant, the excitement was immense. Michael was euphoric. I was going to be a grandmother for the first time. I bought baby clothes, knitted blankets, and prepared the guest room for when they came to visit with the baby. Lily was born on an autumn morning. She weighed 7 pounds. She had Michael's eyes and her mother's little button nose. She was perfect. The first few months were chaotic for them. Claire left her job to stay home with the baby. Michael worked long hours to make up for the lost income. I offered to help. I'd go over 3 times a week to watch Lily while Claire rested or ran errands. I loved holding that little girl, singing her the same songs I sang to Michael when he was a baby. Claire seemed grateful. She'd make me tea, and we'd chat about recipes and parenting tips. It was all harmony. But then, about a year ago, things started to change. Subtly at first. Claire started making strange comments. One day, while I was rocking Lily in their apartment living room, she said, "Mom Evelyn, this big house you live in must be so hard to maintain at your age. Have you thought about selling it and moving somewhere smaller? Maybe one of those nice retirement condos?" I was surprised. I had no problem maintaining my house. I had a gardener who came once a month and a woman who helped me with the deep cleaning every 2 weeks. "No, dear," I answered calmly. "This house holds all my memories. It's where I raised Michael. I don't plan on moving. Claire smiled, but something in her eyes changed. It was just for a second. A cold flash that disappeared so quickly I thought I'd imagined it. After that, the visits became less frequent. When I called to ask if I could see Lily, Claire always had an excuse. The baby was sick. They had plans. It wasn't a good time. Michael would call me from work, apologizing. "Mom, Claire is just really stressed. Motherhood is hard. Give her time." I understood. Or I tried to. But I missed my granddaughter. I missed those moments of connection. Then, 8 months ago, everything changed drastically. Michael called me one night. His voice sounded tired and worried. "Mom, we need to talk to you. Can we come over tomorrow?" My heart sped up. Had something bad happened? Was Lily okay? The next day, all 3 of them arrived. Lily ran to me and hugged my legs. She had gotten so big. She was already 5.5, talking nonstop. "Grandma, Grandma, I missed you so much," she said in her sweet little voice. Michael and Claire sat on the living room sofa. He took my hand. "Mom, we lost the apartment. The owner sold the building, and the new landlords want to renovate. They gave us 30 days to get out." My first instinct was to help. "Do you need money for a deposit on a new place?" "I have some savings." Michael shook his head. "Mom, we've been looking. Everything is so expensive. Decent apartments are $1,500 a month, plus a deposit. We can't afford that right now. Claire wants to go back to work, but daycare costs $800 a month." I looked at Claire. She kept her eyes down, fiddling with her hands. "What do you need?" I asked directly. It was Claire who spoke. "Mom, Evelyn, I know it's a lot to ask, but this house has 4 bedrooms. You only use 1. Could we stay here, temporarily? Just until we save up enough for our own place. 3 months. 6 at the most." I looked at Michael. He nodded, hope in his eyes. "It would just be temporary, Mom. I promise." How could I say no? It was my son, my granddaughter. Of course I would help them. "All right," I said finally. "You can stay as long as you need." Claire got up and hugged me. "Thank you, Mom. You don't know what this means to us." But when she hugged me, I didn't feel warmth. I felt something calculated, something cold. They moved in a week later. They brought boxes and furniture. They took the 2 bedrooms on the 2nd floor, one for them and one for Lily. I gave them space. I tried to be the perfect mother-in-law. I didn't comment on their mess. I didn't complain when the music was loud. I cooked dinner for everyone. I watched Lily when they had to go out. The first few days were relatively calm. But soon, I started noticing strange things. Claire spent a lot of time in her room with the door closed, talking on the phone in a low voice. When I walked down the hall, she would abruptly go silent. She started asking me for the house keys, saying she needed to make copies for emergencies. I agreed. One afternoon I came home from the market and found her in my bedroom, going through the drawers of my dresser. "Claire, what are you doing in here?" I asked, startled. She jumped, clearly frightened. "Oh, Mom, Evelyn, I was just looking for some aspirin. I have a terrible headache." I pointed toward the bathroom. "The medicine is in the bathroom cabinet, not in my bedroom." She smiled nervously. "You're right, how silly of me. I must be really out of it." She left quickly, but I was left with an uneasy feeling in my stomach. After that incident, I started paying more attention. I noticed Claire checking my mail. I saw her photographing documents I'd left on the dining room table, the deed to the house, bank statements. When I asked her why, she said she was helping me get organized. "At your age, Mom Evelyn, it's easy to lose important papers. I'm just making digital copies so everything is safe." It sounded reasonable, but something inside me screamed that this wasn't right. Michael was working so much he was barely home. He left at 6 in the morning and would get back at 8 at night. On weekends, he was exhausted. Claire had completely taken over the house. She moved my things without asking. She changed the layout of the living room furniture. "It's more modern this way," she'd say. She invited her friends over without telling me. She used my cooking ingredients and never replaced anything. When I tried to talk to Michael about it, he sighed wearily. "Mom, please. Claire is stressed. We're all under pressure." Can't you just be patient? I felt guilty. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe I was the problem. But then, 6 months ago, I heard something that changed everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I had gone to the doctor for my routine checkup. The appointment was quicker than expected. I got home 2 hours early. When I opened the front door, I heard Claire's voice coming from the kitchen. She was on the phone. Something in her tone made me stop. I stayed in the entryway, without making a sound. "I'm telling you, it's working," Claire was saying, her voice excited. "The old woman trusts me completely. I already have copies of all the important documents. The deed to the house is in her name, but I've been doing some research. If we can get her declared mentally incompetent, Michael, as the only son, can make decisions for her." My blood ran cold. What was she saying? "No, it's not that hard," Claire continued. "We just need a doctor to certify that she has dementia or something. I've been documenting her forgetfulness. The other day she left the stove on. I made sure of that myself. I took pictures. Then there was the incident where she supposedly got lost at the grocery store. Remember I told you? Well, I gave her the wrong directions on purpose." There was a pause as the other person spoke. "The house is easily worth $450,000. It's in an area that's really appreciating. Once it's ours, we sell it and we're gone. Michael doesn't suspect a thing. He's so busy working he doesn't see what's happening right under his nose." I felt my legs tremble. I had to lean against the wall so I wouldn't fall. "What if the old woman resists?" Claire asked the phone. Silence as she listened to the reply. "Well, then we'll have to get more creative. Ryan, baby, trust me. I've had this planned since before I even married Michael. Why do you think I picked him? It wasn't for his charm, I promise you. It was because I did my research. Only child, widowed mother with a valuable property. He was the perfect mark. My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. Ryan? Who was Ryan? Claire had a lover? Had her entire marriage to my son been a lie from the beginning?" Yes, I know it's been a long time," Claire continued impatiently. 3 years pretending I loved that idiot. 3 years of being the perfect wife, the perfect daughter-in-law. But we're almost done. I just need a little more time. Once I have the money from the house, I'll divorce him, take half of everything, and you and I will take off for Miami, just like we planned." Another pause. "The kid doesn't matter. Michael can have her. I never wanted to be a mother anyway." She was just part of the plan to look more legitimate, more committed to the family. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Lily, my sweet little granddaughter. Claire was talking about her like she was a disposable object. Like she didn't matter. I felt sick. I wanted to storm into the kitchen and confront her right then and there. But something stopped me. If I revealed that I knew her plan, she would find another way. She would be more careful. I needed proof. I needed to protect my son and my granddaughter. With shaking hands, I quietly let myself out of the house. I closed the door without a sound and walked to the corner. I sat on a park bench, trying to process what I had just heard. All my life, I had been an elementary school teacher. I taught for 40 years. I knew people. I knew how to tell when a child was lying or when something was wrong in their family life. But this had happened right under my nose, and I hadn't seen it coming. I had been completely fooled. Claire had put on a masterful performance for 3 years. Every smile, every hug, every kind word had been a calculated lie. And now she was living in my house, sleeping under my roof, eating my food, all while planning to steal everything from me and destroy my family. I took a deep breath. I couldn't fall apart. I was 70 years old, yes, but I wasn't senile. I wasn't helpless. If Claire wanted to play dirty, she would have to face someone who had survived far worse than her. I had raised a son alone after Richard died. I had maintained my home, my finances, my dignity. I was not going to let this woman take away everything I had worked for. I took out my phone and called Sandra. Sandra had been my best friend for 20 years. We met at the book club and discovered we had a lot in common. She'd been a lawyer before she retired. If anyone could advise me, it was her. "Evelyn, what's wrong? You sound upset," Sandra said when she answered. "Sandra, I need to see you, urgently. Can you come to the park near my house?" I'm on my way. Give me 10 minutes. When Sandra arrived, I told her everything. Every word I'd heard. Every suspicion I'd had. Sandra listened, her expression growing more serious by the minute. When I finished, she took my hands. Evelyn, this is serious. Very serious. We're talking about fraud, conspiracy, possibly an attempt to falsely have you declared incompetent. But we need solid proof before we make any move. What do I do? I asked, feeling lost. Sandra thought for a moment. First, you cannot let Claire know you suspect anything. You have to act completely normal. Second, we need to document everything. Every strange conversation, every suspicious move. Third, tomorrow we're going to my old law firm. I have a colleague who still practices, Paul. He's excellent in family fraud cases. He'll help you. And Michael? I asked, my voice breaking. When do I tell him? Sandra squeezed my hands firmly. Not yet. Michael is emotionally involved. If you tell him now, he might confront Claire, or, worse, not believe you. She spent 3 years manipulating him. We need irrefutable proof first. I nodded, though my heart ached. I was going to have to pretend. I was going to have to smile and act like nothing was wrong while my daughter-in-law plotted my destruction. I went back home an hour later. Claire was in the living room, watching television. Hi, Mom Evelyn. How was the doctor? She asked in her usual sweet voice. It took all my strength not to tremble with rage. Everything's fine, dear. Just a routine checkup, I replied with a smile I hoped looked natural. Where's Lily? In her room playing. Want to make dinner together? I bought ingredients for lasagna. I agreed. We cooked together that night. Claire chatted animatedly about trivial things. I nodded, smiled, and answered. But inside, I was cold as ice. I watched her every gesture, every look, trying to figure out what else she was planning. The next day, Sandra picked me up early. I told Claire we were going shopping. At the law office, Paul greeted me with professional warmth. He was a man in his 50s, with graying temples and an intelligent gaze. I told him the whole story again. He took meticulous notes. Mrs. Vargas, what you're describing is serious. If Claire is indeed planning to fraudulently have you declared incompetent and take your property, we are looking at several crimes. We need to build a strong case. How? I asked anxiously. Paul leaned back in his chair. First, we're going to protect your assets. Today, we'll get a full medical workup with a neuropsychologist I trust. This will establish that you are in full command of your mental faculties. Second, we need evidence of Claire's intentions. Do you have any way to record conversations in your house? I hesitated. I don't know if that's legal. In this state, it is legal to record conversations on your own property as long as one party, in this case, you, is present or has given consent. But there's a more useful way. Paul explained his plan. We could install discrete security cameras in the common areas of my house. Many seniors use them for safety, so it wouldn't arouse suspicion. Tell Claire that after your doctor's visit, he recommended you install cameras in case you have a medical emergency while you're alone. It's completely believable. It was brilliant. Sandra smiled. Paul, that's why you were the best. That same afternoon, a technician came to install 3 small cameras, one in the living room, one in the kitchen, and one in the second-floor hallway. Claire arrived just as the technician was finishing up. What's this? She asked, frowning. The doctor recommended I have them for safety, I explained casually. At my age, if I fall or have an emergency when I'm alone, the cameras have motion detection and send alerts. Besides, with you all living here, it's good to have extra security in case of a break-in when we're all out. I saw the conflict on her face. She couldn't object without seeming suspicious. Of course, Mom. That's a very sensible decision, she said finally, though her eyes glinted with annoyance. For the next few weeks, I pretended to be the absent-minded, forgetful grandmother Claire wanted everyone to believe I was. I accidentally left my keys in strange places. I forgot the names of people I knew well when Claire was present. I repeated stories I had just told. It was all calculated to make her feel confident. But secretly, I was building my case. The cameras captured everything, and what they recorded was worse than I had imagined. 3 days after they were installed, the camera showed Claire moving things around when I left the room, hiding my glasses, swapping my medications between bottles. One time, we recorded her turning off the stove just before I walked into the kitchen, then feigning concern, telling me I had left it on all morning. "Mom, Evelyn, this is dangerous. What if you start a fire?" she'd say with false distress as Michael watched with concern. But I knew the truth. She had turned the stove on herself just minutes before. The worst came one night when Michael was working late. I was in my room reading. I heard voices in the hallway. I crept to the door and opened it a crack. Claire was on the phone again, pacing back and forth right in front of the hallway camera. "Ryan, honey, I've almost got it all. I've been collecting evidence of her so-called dementia. I found a doctor who, for $3,000, is willing to sign a document saying he evaluated her and she has severe cognitive decline. He's not her real doctor, obviously, but with the hospital logo, it looks legit." My stomach twisted. "The problem is Michael," Claire continued. "He's been asking questions lately. Yesterday he asked me why his mom seemed so confused all of a sudden. I told him it's just her age, that it's normal, but I need to speed up the plan before he gets suspicious." There was a pause. "Yes, I already spoke to that crooked lawyer you recommended. He says with the fake medical documents and a few invented testimonies, we can start guardianship proceedings. Once Michael is declared his mother's legal guardian due to incapacity, I, as his wife, will have access to everything. I'll sign whatever's necessary in her name. We'll sell the house before anyone can question it." I felt my legs shake. This was so much worse than I thought. She didn't just want to rob me, she wanted to destroy my autonomy completely. She wanted to lock me away in a nursing home or worse. The next day, I took the recording to Paul. He watched it with a grim expression. "This is enough to take legal action. We have conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery of medical documents, and possibly more. But Evelyn, I need to ask you something difficult. Are you ready for this to blow up publicly? Once we act, there's no going back. Your family is going to be torn apart." I looked Paul straight in the eye. "My family is already torn apart. Claire took care of that. Now I just want to protect my son and my granddaughter from this viper." Sandra, who was sitting next to me, chimed in. "Paul, there's something else. Evelyn heard Claire mention she never wanted Lily, that the child was just part of the plan. What happens to custody when this all comes out? If we prove Claire is a con artist and that the marriage was fraudulent from the start, Michael will have every advantage in a divorce. Custody of Lily will stay with him. Claire will have no right to anything." It was what I needed to hear. "But there's one problem. When do we tell Michael?" I asked, my heart heavy. Paul sighed. "Soon. Very soon. But first, we need to ensure Claire can't flee or destroy evidence. Give me 1 more week to get everything ready. In the meantime, you keep acting normal." That week was the longest of my life. Every day, I pretended to be the forgetful grandmother while Claire smiled and plotted my destruction. But I was planning too. With Paul, we prepared all the documentation, the camera recordings, the neuropsychological evaluation proving I was perfectly sane, research on this Ryan character, who turned out to be a con man with a criminal record for fraud, call logs between Claire and him. Everything was falling into place. But then, Claire sped up her plan. One afternoon, she came home with a woman she introduced as a social worker. "Mom, Evelyn, this is Mrs. Martinez. Michael and I are worried about you. We want to make sure you're getting the proper care." This Mrs. Martinez asked me strange questions. About my daily routine, my finances, if I felt safe in my own home. I answered everything carefully, knowing this was part of Claire's plan to have me declared incompetent. When they left, I immediately called Paul. "She's moving faster," he said urgently. "That woman probably works with the crooked lawyer Claire mentioned. Evelyn, we need to act now. First thing tomorrow, we are filing a formal complaint with the authorities and requesting a restraining order against Claire." But that night, things got even worse. Michael came home looking devastated. We sat in the living room, Claire at his side with a look of feigned concern. "Mom," Michael began, his voice trembling. "We need to talk about your health. Claire showed me videos of you doing dangerous things. leaving the stove on, losing things, forgetting conversations. I'm really worried. I looked at Claire. She met my gaze with an almost imperceptible smirk. She had edited the camera recordings, showing him only the parts where I looked confused, deleting the sections where she herself caused those incidents. It was brilliant and evil. "Son," I said calmly, "I am perfectly fine. Those incidents are being taken out of context." Claire interrupted, her voice soft but firm. "Mom, Evelyn, I know it's hard to accept, but dementia is like that. The people who have it don't realize it. That's why Michael and I have decided it's best for you to be evaluated by a specialist. We already have an appointment for tomorrow." I froze. This was her final move. The crooked doctor she mentioned on the phone. "I'm not going anywhere," I said firmly. Michael took my hand. "Mom, please. It's just an evaluation. If everything is fine, great. But we need to be sure. Besides, Claire and I have been talking. This house is a lot for you. Maybe you should consider moving to a place with assistance. We can sell the house and use the money to pay for a nice, comfortable facility." There it was. The entire plan, laid out on the table. My son, completely manipulated, suggesting the exact thing Claire had been plotting from the beginning. I looked at Michael and saw in his eyes that he truly believed he was helping me. He thought he was protecting his sick mother. Claire had poisoned him against me perfectly. "Michael," I said, my voice clear and strong, "I am not sick, and I am not selling my house. This conversation is over." I stood up and went to my room. I heard Claire whisper something to Michael. Their voices rose. He was confused. She was insistent. I couldn't sleep that night. I knew Claire was about to make her final play. I called Paul at 2 a.m. "Paul, we have to act tomorrow. Claire is going to try to take me to a fake doctor. If I sign anything under pressure or deceit, I could lose everything." "Understood," Paul replied, instantly awake and alert. "First thing in the morning, we're filing everything with the judge. I'm also going to contact Michael directly. He needs to know the truth before it's too late." The next morning, everything exploded. Paul called Michael and asked him to come to his office urgently. Michael, confused, agreed. In that meeting, Paul showed him everything. The complete camera recordings, showing Claire manipulating situations. The audio of her calls with Ryan, planning the fraud. The evidence of the crooked doctor. The criminal record of her lover. Michael was in absolute shock. Michael left that office a broken man. Paul called to tell me, "Evelyn, your son is processing everything. He's in shock, furious, confused. I asked him not to confront Claire yet. We need to handle this legally first," but my son couldn't hold back. That afternoon, he came home, trembling with rage. I was in the kitchen making tea when I heard the door fly open. "Where is she?" Michael yelled in a voice I had never heard. Claire came downstairs, a confused look on her face. "Michael? What's wrong? What's wrong?" he repeated with bitter sarcasm. "What's wrong? You're really asking me that? Does Ryan ring a bell? Or the plan to declare my mother senile to steal her house? Or the crooked doctor you were going to pay $3,000? I watched as Claire's face shifted from feigned confusion to real panic in a matter of seconds. "Michael, I don't know what you're talking about. Who told you these lies?" "They're not lies," he roared. "I saw everything. The recordings, the phone logs, everything. I met your lawyer. Paul showed me every single piece of evidence. Our entire marriage was a sham. You never loved me. You just wanted my mother's money." Claire took a step back. Her eyes darted around, calculating. "Honey, listen to me. Someone is trying to tear us apart. Your mother is behind this. She never accepted me. She's making it all up because she doesn't want us to be happy." Michael let out a bitter laugh. "My mother? My mother who opened her home to us? The woman who took care of our daughter while you were plotting to destroy her? No. Claire, this is over. I want you to pack your things and get out of this house. Right now." Claire changed tactics immediately. Tears began to stream down her cheeks. "Michael, please, think about Lily. Think about our family. I made mistakes. I admit it. But we can get through this. I can change." "Change?" Michael looked at her with contempt. You've been acting for 3 years, lying every single day. You used our daughter as part of your plan. You said you never even wanted her, that she was just a tool to look more legitimate. Claire turned pale. She didn't know that conversation had been recorded too. I never said that. I love my daughter. Enough, I interrupted finally. I had been watching from the kitchen doorway. Claire, you have 1 hour to pack your essentials and get out of my house. We will send the rest of your things later. But you are not spending one more night under this roof. Claire looked at me with pure hatred in her eyes. The sweet, loving daughter-in-law was gone. You'll regret this, you stupid old woman. I have rights. I'm Michael's wife. This house is mine, too. Actually, it's not, said a voice from the doorway. It was Paul, who had arrived with Sandra. The house is solely in Mrs. Evelyn Vargas's name. You have no legal claim to this property, and if you don't leave voluntarily, we will call the police for trespassing. Claire looked at all of us with impotent fury. Then she stormed up the stairs. We heard her violently opening and closing drawers in her room. Lily appeared just then, coming down the stairs, rubbing her eyes. Why is everyone yelling? My granddaughter asked in a frightened little voice. Michael scooped her up immediately. It's okay, princess. Mommy and Daddy are just having a difficult conversation. Lily looked at her father with those big, intelligent eyes. Mommy's leaving. We all fell silent. The child knew more than we thought. Half an hour later, Claire came down with 2 suitcases. She didn't look at anyone. She walked straight to the door. But before she left, she turned back to me. You are going to pay for this. I swear it. And she was gone, leaving a heavy silence behind. That night, Michael sat in the living room until very late. I came down to sit with him. Mom, I am so sorry, he said in a broken voice. I didn't see any of it. I was so blind. I failed you. I sat beside him and took his hand. You didn't fail me, son. Claire was a professional manipulator. She fooled all of us. The important thing is that now we know the truth and we can protect Lily. How could I have been so stupid? He lamented. I thought she loved me. I planned a future with her. And it was all a lie from day one. There were no words that could ease that pain. I could only be there, hold his hand, and let him grieve for the marriage that never really existed. But Claire didn't give up easily. 2 days later, we received a legal notice. She was suing for divorce and demanding full custody of Lily, plus financial compensation and alimony. Paul read the documents with a serious expression. She's playing hardball. She knows she has nothing, so she's trying to scare you into a settlement. How bad can this get? Michael asked anxiously. She has no real proof against your mother. We have all the evidence of her fraud. But legal proceedings can be long and painful. Be patient. Over the following weeks, Claire intensified her attacks. She hired an aggressive lawyer who started making increasingly wild accusations. First, she said I had been abusive to her the entire time they lived in my house. Then, she alleged Michael was a negligent father. Finally, she filed for a restraining order against me, claiming I was violent and a danger to Lily. It was absurd, completely false. But the legal system had to investigate every claim. I had to undergo psychological evaluations. Michael had to do the same. They interviewed neighbors, friends, anyone who had been around our family. It was humiliating and exhausting. The worst part was when they temporarily limited my contact with Lily while they investigated the abuse allegations. I couldn't see my granddaughter. I couldn't talk to her. Claire had managed to use the system against me as punishment. I cried many nights, thinking about Lily, wondering what Claire was telling her about me. If she was scared. If she thought her grandmother had abandoned her. Michael kept me updated. Lily asks for you every day, Mom. I tell her she'll see you soon. She doesn't understand why you can't visit. My heart broke every time I heard that. Sandra was my rock during that time. She came over every day. She brought me food when I had no appetite. She forced me to go for walks when all I wanted to do was stay in bed. Evelyn, you can't let Claire see you weak. You have to stay strong. The truth is going to come out. And then, the summons for the hearing on the restraining order arrived. I would have to go to court and defend myself against Claire's accusations. Paul meticulously prepared our case. We had all the recordings, all the testimonies, all the evidence of her fraud. Claire is going to lie under oath, Paul warned me. She's going to cry, she's going to play the victim. But we have the truth on our side. The morning of the hearing, I dressed in my best pearl gray suit. I wanted to look dignified, respectable. Sandra came with me. Michael would be there too with Lily, as the judge had requested her presence. When we arrived at the courthouse, I saw Claire for the first time in weeks. She was dressed conservatively, with minimal makeup, looking every bit the worried, frightened mother. We entered the courtroom. The atmosphere was cold, formal, and intimidating. The walls were a pale beige, with rows of dark wooden benches. The judge's bench dominated the front of the room. I sat at the defense table with Paul at my side. Claire was at the opposite table with her lawyer, a shark-like man in a black suit. Michael walked in, holding Lily's hand. My granddaughter was wearing a peach-colored dress and her favorite glittery shoes. When she saw me, her eyes lit up. "Grandma," she whispered excitedly, trying to pull her hand free from her father's to run to me. But Michael held her gently. "Wait, princess." "Not yet." Lily looked confused but obeyed. They sat in the front row behind us. I saw Claire glance at the child with a strange expression. It wasn't motherly love. It was more like annoyance at her presence. The judge entered. He was a man in his 60s, with stark white hair and a serious but not unkind expression. Court is in session. Case number 234567, Claire Moreno versus Evelyn Vargas. Petition for a restraining order. Claire's lawyer stood up first. "Your Honor, my client has suffered systematic, emotional, and psychological abuse at the hands of the respondent, her mother-in-law. During the months they lived under the same roof, Mrs. Vargas exhibited aggressive, threatening, and destabilizing behaviors. My client fears for her safety and the safety of her minor daughter." It was unbelievable to hear those words. Me, who had opened my home, who had cared for her child, who had tried to help at every turn. The lawyer continued. "Furthermore, Your Honor, we have concerns about Mrs. Vargas's mental health. She has shown signs of dementia, erratic behavior, and dangerous lapses in memory. She is not safe to be around a minor." Paul shot to his feet. "Objection, Your Honor. The petitioner has presented 0 medical evaluations to support these claims. In fact, we have comprehensive evaluations proving my client is in full command of her mental faculties." The judge nodded. "Sustained. Proceed with testimony." Claire was called to the stand. She swore to tell the truth with her hand on the Bible. The irony was sickening. Her masterful performance began. In a trembling voice, she described a home filled with tension. She said I criticized her constantly, that I insulted her when Michael wasn't around, that I had tried to drive a wedge between her and her husband from the beginning. Living with her was a nightmare, Claire said, dabbing at tears that looked real. Every day she told me I wasn't good enough for her son, that Lily would be better off without me as a mother. She would hide things from me. She made me feel like I was losing my mind. It was the exact opposite of what she had done to me. She was projecting her own crimes onto me. Her lawyer asked, "Was Mrs. Vargas ever physically aggressive with you?" Claire hesitated for just a second. Calculating. "Yes. One time, she pushed me against the wall when I confronted her about leaving the stove on. I have pictures of the bruises. A lie. A total and complete lie." Paul scribbled notes quickly. When the direct examination ended, it was Paul's turn to cross-examine. "Mrs. Claire, you mentioned my client pushed you. Did you report this alleged assault to the police?" Claire blinked. "No, I was. I was afraid it would make the situation worse." "I see. And the photographs of the bruises you mentioned? Can you show them to the court?" "I have them on my phone. I can. Send them." "Please, do so now." There was a flicker of panic in Claire's eyes. I don't have my phone with me." "How convenient," Paul said dryly. "Mrs. Claire, do you know a man named Ryan Contreras?" Claire's face went pale. I don't know who that is." "Are you sure? Because we have phone records showing you called him 347 times in the last 6 months. We also have text messages between you." Claire's lawyer stood up. Objection, Your Honor. What relevance does this have? The relevance, Your Honor, Paul explained calmly, goes directly to the witness's character and credibility. If Mrs. Claire is lying about her relationship with Mr. Contreras, what else is she lying about? The judge considered. Overruled. Continue. Paul approached Claire. Mrs. Claire, is it true that you and Mr. Ryan Contreras conspired to defraud my client? Is it true that your marriage to Michael Vargas was motivated solely by financial interest in your mother-in-law's property? That's ridiculous, Claire said, but her voice was shaking. Is it ridiculous? Then perhaps you can explain this recording. Paul signaled. On the large courtroom screen, the audio of Claire speaking with Ryan began to play. Her voice, clear and unmistakable. The old woman trusts me completely. I already have copies of all the important documents. The deed to the house is in her name, but I've been doing some research. If we can get her declared mentally incompetent, Michael, as the only son, can make decisions for her. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. All eyes were on Claire. Her face had gone from white to red. That was taken out of context, she stammered. Out of context? Paul played more. The part where Claire said she had never loved Michael. The part where she said Lily didn't matter. The part where she described, in detail, her plan to sell the house and flee with the money. With every second of audio, Claire sank lower in her chair. Her lawyer looked furious. Clearly, she had not told him the truth about the situation. Your Honor, Paul said, turning to the judge, we also have video recordings from the security cameras in my client's home that show Mrs. Claire actively manipulating situations to make my client appear confused or dangerous. Mrs. Claire is seen turning on the stove and then accusing my client of leaving it on. She is seen hiding objects and then claiming my client lost them. This was all a calculated plan to have her declared incompetent and steal her property. The judge looked at Claire with a severe expression. Mrs. Claire, these are very serious allegations. Do you have anything to say in your defense? Claire opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She was trapped. All her lies, all her manipulations had been exposed in open court. Her lawyer stood up. Your Honor, I request a recess to consult with my client. Denied, the judge said firmly. This hearing will continue. Mrs. Claire, I am ordering you to respond. Are those recordings authentic? Claire looked around desperately. She looked at Michael. My son was watching her with a mixture of pain and disgust. She glanced toward the door, as if calculating whether she could escape. I can explain, she finally stammered. Things just got out of hand. At first, I just wanted to make sure my family was financially secure. But then, so you admit you planned to defraud my client? Paul interjected. Claire fell silent. The judge stepped in. Mrs. Claire, I remind you that you are under oath. Lying to this court constitutes perjury, which is a criminal offense. I am asking you directly. Did you plan to have Mrs. Evelyn Vargas declared incompetent in order to take possession of her property? There was a long silence. Finally, Claire whispered, Yes. A murmur went through the room. The judge banged his gavel. Order! I looked at Claire and saw a woman utterly defeated. Her perfect plan had collapsed. Paul continued, Your Honor, in addition to the recordings, we have evidence that Mrs. Claire contacted a doctor willing to forge a psychiatric evaluation for $3,000. We have text messages where she discusses this plan. We also have proof of her extramarital relationship with Ryan Contreras, who has a criminal record for real estate fraud. Claire's lawyer stood up again. Your Honor, my client clearly needs time too. Your client, sir, needs a criminal lawyer. The judge cut him off. What I have heard here today goes far beyond a simple restraining order. We are talking about conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery of documents, and perjury before this court. He turned to Claire. Mrs. Claire, not only am I denying your petition for a restraining order, but I am ordering a full criminal investigation into your actions. Furthermore, based on the evidence presented, I am granting full temporary custody of the minor child to the father, Mr. Michael Vargas. Claire finally reacted. No, you can't. You can't take my daughter from me. You yourself admitted on tape that you never wanted the child. that she was just part of your plan, the judge said coldly. It was then that something happened that no one expected. Lily stood up from her seat. My 6-year-old granddaughter walked toward the front of the courtroom with determined steps, clutching her pink tablet to her chest. We all watched, stunned. Mr. Judge, Lily said in her clear little voice, I can show you something Mommy hid. The judge leaned forward, intrigued. What do you have there, young lady? My tablet. It has videos. Claire's lawyer immediately objected. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. The minor should not be participating. I want to see what the child has. The judge interrupted. Approach the bench, young lady. Lily walked up to the judge's bench. Claire shot to her feet. No, Lily, give me that right now. Her voice had lost all its sweetness. It was harsh, desperate, and threatening. Sit down, Mrs. Claire, the judge commanded. Bailiff, please ensure she does not interfere. A court officer moved to stand near Claire, who sank back into her chair, a look of absolute panic on her face. The judge took the pink tablet from Lily's hands. Do you know how to work this, honey? Yes, Mr. Judge. I recorded everything. Mommy doesn't know. My heart stopped. Lily had recorded something? What had my little granddaughter seen? The judge pressed play on the first video. The large courtroom screen came to life again. The image showed the inside of my house, specifically the kitchen. The camera was clearly hidden. Lily must have left the tablet recording from a shelf. The video showed Claire alone in the kitchen. She was taking my blood pressure pills and replacing them with different ones from a bottle she took out of her purse. Then she pocketed my real pills. Oh my God, I whispered. She had been giving me the wrong medication. That explained why I had felt so dizzy some weeks back. The next video was worse. It showed Claire in the living room, on the phone with someone. Yes, I've got the name of the assisted living facility. It costs $2,000 a month. Once we have her declared incompetent and sell the house, there will be enough money to pay for the facility for years while we enjoy the rest. We won't even have to visit her. Michael let out a pained sound from his seat. He had loved this woman. He had built a life with her. And all of it was a lie. But the most devastating video came last. It was recent, from only 2 weeks ago. It showed Claire in Lily's room, leaning over the little girl who was in her bed. Claire's voice was cold, cruel. Lily, listen to me. Your grandmother is a bad woman. A very bad woman. She doesn't love you. She only pretends to. When I get her taken away, you are going to tell the judge that your grandmother scares you, understand? You're going to say she yells and that she hits you. But Grandma never hits me, Lily's confused voice answered in the video. She loves me. You're a stupid little girl, Claire yelled on the recording. Your grandmother is old and she's going to die soon anyway. What matters is that you and I have money. So you are going to do exactly what I tell you, or you will be very sorry. But I love my grandma, Lily insisted, her voice now tearful. I don't care what you want. Claire gripped Lily's arm tightly. You will obey me, or I will send you away to a boarding school where you will never see your grandmother or your daddy again. Do you want that? Lily was sobbing in the video. No, Mommy. Please, no. Then you'll do what I say. And if you tell anyone about these conversations, especially your daddy, things will get very bad for you. The video ended. The courtroom was in complete, stunned silence. I had tears streaming down my cheeks. My baby, my little granddaughter, had been suffering this psychological abuse, and none of us knew. Michael was crying openly. He stood up and walked to Lily, sweeping her up into his arms and holding her against his chest. I'm sorry, Princess. I'm so sorry. Daddy didn't know. Lily clung to his neck. Mommy scared me, Daddy. But I couldn't tell you because she said she'd send me away. The judge was looking at Claire with an expression that could only be described as utter revulsion. Mrs. Claire, in my 30 years on this bench, I have seen many terrible things. But threatening and psychologically manipulating a 6-year-old child to lie in a legal proceeding is among the most despicable things I have ever witnessed. Claire finally broke. The tears streaming down her face now were of real despair, not an act. I didn't want to hurt her. I just needed the money. I have debts. Ryan and I had plans. I was going to start a new life. At the cost of destroying this family? the judge asked harshly. At the cost of traumatizing your own daughter? At the cost of trying to rob a 70-year-old woman of everything she has? Claire had no answer. There are more videos, Lily said quietly. Lots more. Mommy didn't know my tablet can record even when the screen is off. I left it in places where she was talking. The judge looked through the tablet. There were dozens of videos. Some showed Claire meeting with Ryan in coffee shops. Others showed her practicing how she would act in court, rehearsing her tears in front of a mirror. There was one particularly disturbing one where Claire told Ryan, "The old woman has to disappear eventually. If plan A doesn't work, there are always ways to make it look like an accident. Old people fall all the time." Paul stood up. "Your Honor, that is a direct threat against my client's life. This goes beyond fraud. We are potentially talking about conspiracy to commit murder." The judge nodded grimly. "I agree. Bailiff, take Mrs. Claire into custody immediately. She is under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery of documents, perjury, child abuse, and criminal threats. There will be no bail." 2 officers approached Claire. She finally went into a full panic. She leaped to her feet and tried to run for the exit. "No, you can't do this. I have rights." The officers caught her before she reached the door. They restrained her as she screamed and thrashed. "Let me go. This is unfair. Evelyn set me up. She planned all of this." "Mrs. Claire," the judge said in a firm voice, "the evidence speaks for itself. You planned every step of your scheme. Mrs. Vargas simply defended herself by documenting your crimes." As the officers led her out of the courtroom in handcuffs, Claire looked at me with pure hatred. "This isn't over. I will find a way to destroy you. Add verbal threats to the charges," the judge said dryly. When the door closed behind Claire, I felt a massive weight lift from my shoulders. The judge turned to me. "Mrs. Vargas, I am deeply sorry for what you have had to endure. It is clear that you are the victim here, not the aggressor. The restraining order is not only denied, but I am issuing a permanent restraining order against Mrs. Claire. She will not be allowed within 500 yards of you or your property." "Thank you, Your Honor," I said, my voice trembling. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "I am ordering full and permanent custody of the minor, Lily Vargas, to the father, Michael Vargas. The mother's custodial and visitation rights are terminated until such time as she is evaluated by mental health professionals and deemed not to be a danger to the child. Given the documented psychological abuse, I anticipate that evaluation will not be favorable." Michael hugged Lily tighter, tears of relief streaming down his face. The judge looked at Lily with kindness. "Young lady, you were very brave to show us those videos. You helped protect your grandmother and yourself. You knew what you were doing was important." Lily nodded. "Grandma always tells me to tell the truth, even when it's hard. Mommy asked me to lie, but I didn't want to lie." "You are a very special girl," the judge said with a smile. "And a very smart one. Your grandmother must be very proud of you." I stood up and walked over to Lily. Michael passed her to me, and I hugged my granddaughter with all my strength. "I am so proud of you, my love. So proud. I don't have to go away, Grandma?" "No, sweetheart, never. You're going to stay with Daddy and me, forever." Paul came over and put a hand on my shoulder. "Evelyn, the judge is also referring this case to the district attorney's office. Claire is going to face serious criminal charges. She will likely spend several years in prison." "And Ryan?" I asked. "He will be investigated and likely arrested as a co-conspirator. They are not getting away with this." The hearing was over. We walked out of the courthouse into the bright afternoon Sunday. Sandra was waiting outside and gave me a powerful hug. "You did it, Evelyn. You beat her." "It wasn't just me," I said, looking at Lily, who was now holding her father's hand. "It was my brave granddaughter." The days that followed were a blur of legal activity. Paul worked tirelessly, preparing all the documentation to ensure Claire faced the full consequences of her actions. The criminal investigation moved quickly. The police arrested Ryan 2 days after the hearing. They found him in a cheap motel near the border, trying to flee the country. When they questioned him, he tried to blame Claire for everything, saying she was the mastermind and he had just followed her instructions, a coward to the end. They also arrested the crooked doctor who had been willing to forge the psychiatric evaluation. It turned out he had a history of fraudulent practices and was already under investigation for similar cases. The web of corruption Claire had woven began to unravel completely. Michael was emotionally wrecked but relieved. He spent every free moment with Lily, making up for the time he hadn't known what she was suffering. One night, after he had tucked her into bed, he came down to the living room where I was reading. "Mom, I need to talk to you," he said, sitting beside me. "What is it, son?" "I feel so guilty. I brought that woman into our lives. I endangered your home, your well-being, even my own daughter's safety. How could I have been so blind?" I closed my book and took his hands. "Michael, Claire was a professional con artist. She spent 3 years building a perfect facade. She fooled all of us. Don't blame yourself for loving someone who turned out to be different from who she claimed to be. But the signs were there. Her questions about the house from the very beginning. Her insistence on moving in here. I wanted to believe I had found love. And that's human," I said softly. "We all want to believe in love, in family, in the good intentions of others." Claire exploited that vulnerability. But the important thing is that when you learned the truth, you acted. You protected your daughter, and you protected me. "Can you ever forgive me?" he asked in a broken voice. "There is nothing to forgive. You are my son. I love you unconditionally. What happened just made us stronger, more aware. Now we know what we're capable of when our family is in danger." Michael hugged me. "I don't know what I would have done without you, Mom. Without your strength, your intelligence in documenting everything, your patience. You're incredible." I laughed gently. "I'm just a 70-year-old woman who wasn't going to let anyone steal what I built over decades of work." We sat in silence for a moment. Then Michael asked, "Do you think Lily will be okay? After everything she heard, everything she saw, the psychological abuse." "Lily is strong," I answered with certainty. "She's 6 years old, but she showed more courage than most adults. With love, therapy, and time, she will heal. I've already spoken to Paul about finding a good child psychologist for her. Thank you, Mom, for everything." The following week, Paul updated us on the case. Claire is cooperating with the prosecutors. She knows the evidence against her is overwhelming, so she's trying to negotiate a reduced sentence in exchange for testifying against Ryan and the crooked doctor. "What kind of sentence are we talking about?" Michael asked. "Even with cooperation, she's looking at between 5 and 8 years in prison. The charges are multiple and serious. Fraud, conspiracy, forgery, child abuse, criminal threats. The judge isn't going to be lenient." I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. Relief that Claire wouldn't be able to hurt us for a long time. Sadness that Lily would grow up knowing her mother was in prison. "And the divorce?" I asked. "Considerably fast-tracked, given the circumstances," Paul nodded. "Michael will have the divorce finalized in about 3 months. Claire isn't fighting anything. She has no legal leg to stand on after it was proven the marriage was fraudulent from the beginning." "What about the alimony she was demanding?" "Completely denied. In fact, the judge has ordered her to pay restitution to you, Evelyn, for the emotional distress and legal fees. Obviously, she has no money to pay now, but the debt will be on her record. It was justice. Not perfect, because the pain caused could never be fully erased, but it was justice." Over the next few weeks, life slowly began to return to normal. Michael and Lily were still living with me. He had decided there was no point in looking for another apartment. "If you don't mind, Mom, I'd like to stay. This house is big, there's room for everyone, and Lily is happy here. Plus, I like knowing you're not alone. I would love for you to stay," I answered honestly. "This house has been too empty for too long. Having you both here brings it back to life." Lily started therapy with a psychologist specializing in childhood trauma. Dr. Martinez was a warm, patient woman who quickly earned my granddaughter's trust. After a few sessions, she called me to talk. "Mrs. Vargas, Lily is processing what happened very well. She's a resilient child. What impresses me most is her understanding that recording those videos was important. She told me she did it because she wanted to protect you. That sense of family loyalty and bravery at her age is extraordinary. Will she be okay, long term?" I asked, worried. With the support she has from you and her father, yes. She will need time to fully understand what happened with her mother, especially as she gets older and comprehends the implications. But she has a solid foundation of love and security. That's the most important thing. I felt relieved. My biggest fear had been that Lily would be permanently traumatized by Claire's actions. A month after the hearing, we got word that Claire had accepted a plea deal. She would plead guilty to all charges in exchange for a 6-year sentence. With good behavior, she could be out in 4. What happens when she gets out? I asked Paul, concerned. The permanent restraining order will still be in effect. She cannot come near you or your property. As for Lily, when Claire is released, she would have to petition the court for any kind of visitation. Given the documented abuse, it would be supervised and limited, if it's granted at all. And if she tries to contact us, that would be a violation of the restraining order. She'd go right back to prison. Claire knows this. My guess is, once she's out, she'll probably disappear. Start a new life somewhere else, far away from the reminders of her failure here. I hoped so. Not for my sake, but for Lily's. My granddaughter deserved peace. The sentencing hearing was brief. Claire appeared in an orange prison jumpsuit, wearing no makeup, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked so different from the glamorous woman I had met 3 years ago. When the judge asked if she had anything to say before he passed sentence, she stood up. I want to apologize. To Evelyn, to Michael, and especially to my daughter, Lily. I have no excuse for what I did. I was selfish, cruel, and manipulative. I destroyed a family that had welcomed me. I deserve every day of the sentence I am about to receive. She sounded sincere, but I could no longer trust anything that came out of her mouth. The judge sentenced her to 6 years in federal prison. Mrs. Claire, I hope you use this time to reflect deeply on your actions and the people you hurt. When you are released, you will have to carry the consequences of your choices for the rest of your life. They led her away in handcuffs. It was the last time I ever saw her. Sandra organized a small celebration at my house that night. A few friends from the book club came, some neighbors who had been witnesses in the case, and of course Paul, who had become more than our lawyer. He was a family friend now. To Evelyn, Sandra toasted, raising her wine glass. The strongest woman I know. She faced adversity with grace, intelligence, and determination. She taught us all that age is just a number and that it's never too late to fight for what's right. Everyone cheered. I felt overwhelmed by the affection and support. Thank you, all, I said, my voice thick with emotion. This has been the hardest year of my life, but it also taught me what I'm capable of. It taught me that I have wonderful people by my side. And it taught me that the truth always finds a way out. Lily, who had been playing in the corner of the living room, ran over and hugged my legs. I love you, Grandma. You're my hero. Those words from Lily filled my heart in a way I hadn't experienced in a long time. I knelt to her level and stroked her soft hair. And you're mine, sweetheart. You were so brave. Without you, without those videos you recorded, things might have been very different. Is Mommy coming back? Lily asked in a small voice. It was the question I had been dreading, but I knew it would come eventually. No, sweetheart, your mommy did some very bad things, and she has to be away for a long time. But you have Daddy, and you have me, and we have so much love to give you. Is that okay? Lily thought for a moment, then nodded. That's okay, Mommy. She scared me sometimes. You never scare me, Grandma. I held her tight, so grateful that my granddaughter understood, in her own way, what had happened. The months passed. Fall turned to winter, and then to spring. Life found a new rhythm. Michael got a promotion at work, which meant a better income but also some nights working from home. Lily started first grade and came home every afternoon, excitedly telling me about her classes and her new friends. I returned to my routines. Book club on Tuesdays, the farmer's market on Thursdays, but now with the added joy of dropping off and picking up Lily from school, helping her with homework, and baking cookies together on weekends. The house that had been so empty after Richard's death was now brimming with life again. A child's laughter filled the hallways. The refrigerator was covered in Lily's drawings. The dining table was always set for 3. It was everything I had wanted without knowing I needed it. One afternoon in April, Sandra came over for coffee, as she often did now. We sat in the backyard, enjoying the warm spring Sunday. You know, Sandra said, looking at the roses that had begun to bloom, when this all started, I was afraid you wouldn't get through it. Claire attacked your home, your security, your family. I thought it would break you. There were moments when I thought it would too, I admitted. Especially when I couldn't see Lily, when Michael was so confused, when it felt like no one believed me. But then I realized something. What's that? That I'd survived worse. I lost Richard, the love of my life. I raised Michael on my own. I faced tough financial years when he was little. I've overcome illness, loss, and disappointment. Claire was just another storm, and I knew how to survive storms. Sandra smiled. You're stronger than you think, Evelyn. You always have been. The funny thing is, I continued, Claire thought my age was a weakness. She thought because I was older, I'd be easy to manipulate, easy to fool. She didn't understand that making it to 70 means you've seen a lot, learned a lot, and survived a lot. She didn't just underestimate me, she underestimated the wisdom that comes with age. And she paid the price for that arrogance, Sandra added. Have you heard anything about her? Paul keeps me informed. She's in a federal prison about 3 hours from here. Apparently, she's taking classes while serving her sentence. Part of me hopes she really does change, for her own sake. But most of me is just grateful she's far away. And Michael? How is he handling it all? Better every day. He's in therapy, too. It's helping him process the betrayal, the guilt, all of it. He's even started dating someone, though very cautiously this time. Sandra laughed. I imagine he does a full background check on anyone he meets now. I asked him to introduce me to his new friend before things get serious, I said with a smile. I'll be personally vetting her intentions. You're a terrifying mother-in-law now, Sandra joked. Not terrifying, protective. There's a difference. We laughed together, enjoying the light-hearted moment after so many months of tension. Paul had become a frequent visitor, too. He sometimes came for Sunday dinner. Lily adored him and called him Uncle Paul. One evening, as he was helping me clear the table, he said, Evelyn, I worked your case pro bono, but even if I had charged my full rates, it wouldn't have been enough payment for what I learned from you. What did you learn? I asked, surprised. That you should never underestimate anyone based on their age or appearance. That justice sometimes requires patience and strategy, not just direct confrontation. And that the strongest people are often the ones who boast the least about their strength. I was deeply moved. Paul, you saved my home, my reputation, my family. I should be thanking you. We saved each other, he said with a warm smile. That's how real friendship works. 2 months later, we got the news that Michael's divorce was officially final. There were no legal ties left between him and Claire. That night, Michael, Lily, and I went out to dinner to celebrate. We went to Lily's favorite restaurant, one with bright yellow tablecloths and cheerful music. A toast, Michael said, raising his water glass. Since Lily couldn't have wine, and he'd decided to join her, to new beginnings, to real family. And to the most amazing woman I know, my mom, who protected us all even when we didn't know we needed protecting. We clinked our glasses. Lily giggled and asked if she could order dessert. Life was simple again, simple and sweet. One summer afternoon, nearly a year after all the chaos, I was sitting in my backyard reading when Lily came running out of the house. Grandma, Grandma. My teacher says we have to write about our hero for class. Can I write about you? About me? I asked, surprised. Sweetheart, there are so many more interesting heroes, astronauts, scientists, activists. But you're my hero, Lily insisted, climbing into my lap. You fought the villain and you won, like in the movies. And you protected me. I felt tears sting my eyes. My love, I'm not a hero. I'm just a grandmother who loves her family. That's exactly what makes you a hero, Lily said with the simple logic of a 7-year-old. Maybe she was right. Maybe heroism wasn't about capes and superpowers. Maybe it was about getting up every day and fighting for the people you love, even when you're scared, especially when you're scared. That night, after helping Lily with her hero essay, I went up to my room. I sat at my vanity, the same mirror where I had gotten ready for the court hearing almost a year ago. I looked at my reflection. Gray hair, wrinkles around my eyes, hands that showed decades of work. But I saw something else too. I saw strength. I saw resilience. I saw a survivor. I thought about everything that had happened. How Claire had nearly destroyed everything I had built. How I had come so close to losing my home, my dignity, my family. But here I was, still standing, still fighting, still loving. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Sandra. "Coffee tomorrow at 10 o'clock. I have juicy gossip from the book club." I smiled and texted back, "I'll be there." Life went on. Simple, ordinary, beautiful. I went downstairs and found Michael in the living room, watching TV. "Everything okay, Mom?" he asked. "Everything is perfect, son." And it was true. For the first time in a long time, everything was perfect. Not perfect as in without problems or challenges, but perfect in the sense that we were together, safe, and loved. That was all that really mattered. Weeks later, on a particularly beautiful morning, Lily and I were having breakfast together in the backyard. She was eating her pancakes while telling me about a science project at school. "Grandma," she said suddenly, "do you think I'll ever have to forgive Mommy?" The question caught me off guard. "Why do you ask that, sweetheart?" "Doctor, Martinez says, forgiving doesn't mean what someone did was okay. It means you don't let it hurt you anymore. But I don't know if I can." I took her small hand in mine. "Lily, forgiveness is a very personal thing. No one can tell you when or if you should forgive someone. What I can tell you is this. Don't let what your mom did turn you into a bitter person. You are a sweet, smart, brave girl. Hold on to those things, no matter what. Did you forgive Mommy?" I thought about my answer carefully. I'm in the process. Some days are easier than others. What helps me is remembering that while Claire is in prison paying for what she did, I'm right here in my garden, having breakfast with my favorite granddaughter. She didn't win. Love won. And that's the best revenge of all. Living well. Lily nodded thoughtfully. "I think I understand." That afternoon, while Lily played in her room and Michael worked in his makeshift office upstairs, I sat on the living room sofa with a hot cup of tea. I looked around my home. The walls that had witnessed so much pain now echoed with laughter again. The spaces Claire had tried to steal were now filled with genuine love. I thought about the woman I was a year ago, scared, attacked, questioning my own sanity. And I looked at the woman I was now, stronger, wiser, more secure. The suffering had not been in vain. It had taught me what I was capable of. It had shown me who my true allies were. It had given me a deeper bond with my son and my granddaughter. My phone vibrated. A text from Paul. "Claire petitioned for visitation with Lily. Denied by the judge. Thought you'd want to know." I replied, "Thank you for keeping me informed." And I went back to drinking my tea, calm. Claire would keep trying. She would keep looking for ways to reclaim something she had lost. But she didn't scare me anymore. I had faced her worst, and I had won. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Michael appeared, holding Lily's hand. "Mom, Lily wants to build a fire in the backyard and roast marshmallows. Are you in?" "Absolutely," I said, smiling. We went out to the backyard. Michael built the fire while Lily and I found the sticks for the marshmallows. We sat around the fire, watching the flames dance as the sky slowly darkened. "This is my favorite place in the whole world," Lily said with a sigh of contentment, her marshmallow perfectly golden. "Mine too," I said, looking at my family. And it was true. After everything that had happened, after the betrayal, the pain, the legal battle, here I was, in my backyard, in my home, with the people who truly mattered. Claire had tried to take everything from me. Instead, she had given me something priceless, the absolute certainty that I was stronger than I ever imagined. Today, I am alone in the sense that I don't have a husband, I don't have a romantic partner, but for the first time in years, I am at peace. I have my son. I have my granddaughter. I have my home. I have my dignity. And I have the satisfaction of knowing that when someone tried to destroy me, I stood up and fought back. And I won. Not with violence, not with revenge, but with truth, evidence, patience, and love. That I decided as I watched Lily laugh with her father under the stars, was the sweetest victory of all.